All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And it looks like hearts have been broken, okay? And a rite of passage hath been achieved by one Andrew Yang. He is officially getting death threats that have made him have to coordinate efforts with, or cooperate, shall we say, with the FBI. So, Cody, tell us what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is kind of an interesting way of putting it. It's like he's finally made it. Now people actually hate you, but it is kind of unfortunate to go through this. So we're going to walk through this. The story dropped late last night in the East Coast time. It said, Yang campaign contacts FBI over death threats in New Hampshire. Obviously, now, a couple things that stand out is, I mean,
By the way, 4,000 shares. I think that's the most shares we've seen of any story in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, also, those numbers are interesting. But what I want to kind of talk about here is one thing that kind of really interests me. And as, we talk a lot about Andrew Yang, we look about Andrew Yang stuff a lot. But of every candidate to, threaten, you would think Andrew Yang, he's tied for 5th overall. You would think now, that being said, I'm sure death threats are coming in to people, the people that are polling higher. It's weird to me that you would target of all candidates. And then we'll get through into the targeting. It gets more interesting, guys. Listen to the story. So this is an article posted by The Hill. They were, I believe, the first publication I saw with the stories. They say that businessman Andrew Yang's presidential campaign says it has contacted the FBI after receiving several death threats during its latest swing through New Hampshire. Again, of all places, New Hampshire. How many people live in New Hampshire? Of all places to find someone who's crazy.
And also, nowadays, a lot of us, honestly, we just don't believe this death threats thing. We had a school official here who said he was getting death threats, and we actually looked him up when I worked at the radio station. And it was like one guy saying, "Oh, you're a traitor."
But hold on.
And he was like, "Oh, well, the crime of treason carries the death penalty. Therefore, this is a death threat." And it was like,
let us get into the story first before we get on.
Well, yeah, but this was legit, man. I saw what these people were claiming. I thought, ooh, that's a little spooky.
It is weird because it was weird. They say many of the emails. Oh, no, here we go. Emails sent to the Yang campaign and reviewed by The Hill showed a user going by the name Hitman Yang, which is weird, threatening to shoot members of Yang's camp
shows commitment
while they're in the Granite State. Many of the emails referenced the campaign's tweets, threatening that if the number of tweets from the candidate reached an unspecified threshold, that members of the campaign would be attacked. That is what drives me that is the thing of this that stood out to me as the most odd. I've never heard of something like that. Again, they say that many of the emails reference that if a tweet reaches a certain number of people or reaches a certain number of likes, then they will do something. Because one is something the campaign has no control over, how many people share a tweet. Maybe that was the idea. I don't know. They drum up fear because you can't control that. So I have no idea. That was unique. I never heard of that because we were talking, like you said just a minute ago, that social media, of course, people say things to each other all the time.
Yeah.
That was weird. I haven't seen that. They go on specifically to mention that recently the campaign received threats via email regarding the candidate and specific public events due to certain specific information contained in the emails, and out of an abundance of caution, we immediately contacted the FBI and local enforcement and have been working with them. It is, again, I want to highlight there as well, the other kind of edge of this news. Well, it's, of course, never good something like this happens. Also, as they mentioned, they're being very cautious. This is not like, okay, we're finding, bullet casings on our hotel room door.
Yeah.
It really is just, we've gotten emails that concern us. I want to make sure that people out there, people get too alarmed. I mean, it's alarming that this has happened, but there's no imminent danger that's clearly in sight. They just want to make sure they're cautious and they make sure that, hey, let's confirm this is just some loon saying crazy stuff. And if it isn't, we're aware so we can prevent it, which I respect, but it is, like I said, really weird. And there's not a whole much more here. There's no comment, it seems, at the moment I found. I'll check in a minute here to see. There's no comment from the local police or FBI. Because, again, I don't know what they can say. It's an open investigation, right? They're probably currently, if they are taking it seriously, which I imagine a candidate, they have to, right? They're probably tracking IP. I don't know. I just, like I said, just before we got into the kind of our commentary on this, I just wanted to get through the details on it just to make sure no one thinks that anything is more nefarious or crazy going on than there is. As of right now, public information is a user has been sending emails to the Yang campaign, threatening to commit acts of violence, specifically shoot, but commit acts of violence against the Yang campaign members, specifically referencing the reach of tweets and stuff. I have no idea. Very weird stuff.
Hey, this is one of those things where I think that an overabundance of caution is okay. And I probably would have done the exact same thing. The strangeness of it is one of those things where it's like, That's weird enough to be believable, but also strange enough to think just some, as we say in Spanish, desubicado, which just means like some disoriented or crazy person. You know what I'm saying is just messing around. But, you know, you feel like a fool if you're the one that doesn't take it seriously when something actually does happen. And I think there's a reason why the Secret Service is appointed to every person that makes it into a presidential campaign. And I'm fine with that. You know, sometimes I wonder how our like state senators and state legislators just, you know, go to bed at night knowing that they just passed a bill that the people are going to be pissed at and everybody knows where they live.
But here's the thing is that I would say they probably even, let me know. I would say public figures probably draw, like we saw here, you probably draw way more ire, way more hate, and receive way more threats over absolutely innocuous nothing than you do when you actually do pass a bill that, you know, let's say you pass a bill that basically ends a certain industry. The likelihood someone from that industry will commit an act of violence against you is probably lower than just some person who hates you because of some social thing or personal thing. Like the fact that what motivates someone to anger and actual acts of violence, it always is like nothing. It's they said this thing I didn't agree with. It's never they concrete did a thing that affected me. It's always they stand for something I oppose. It's like, that's not what I mean.
Yeah, and when you study these guys,
man, it's never they did the thing. However, can I give you one more thing too?
Yeah.
I want to hear your opinion on this. I don't have it here, but someone else brought this up. I was talking about earlier why target Andrew Yang, right? Well, a lot of people don't know this, but when Martin Luther King Jr. was actually shot, unfortunately, I believe he was like in that speech, correct me if I'm wrong, advocating for UBI at the moment. I mean, the UBI push, I believe was like really what was going on near the kind of like later part of his life. I could be wrong, but I believe I've heard that. And when and you know, just the idea is we have another high profile individual, Martin Luther King Jr., who was killed for advocating for many things probably, but one of those being perhaps UBI. Now, I think it's a little bit far-fetched for many reasons. One, correlation doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't
Two,
mean causation, yeah.
Martin Luther King stood for many things in his life aside from UBI. I would say, like, you have to explain to people, like, if you when you tell people that Martin Luther King Jr. supported UBI, they go like, oh, I didn't know that. They don't say, of course, clearly, everyone knows that. So that's the other thing. But, I mean, seriously, why target Andrew Yang? Is it because he's Asian, maybe? I don't know. Is it because he's supporting UBI? I don't know.
No, I think...
Is it because this
no, a lot of the times...
Perhaps.
Yeah, no, a lot of these times, the people are just crazy. Like, for example, the guy that tried to shoot Ronald Reagan, okay? It's a little before your time, Cody. But the guy whips out a gun in the middle of public, okay? And he tries to assassinate the president. And it's one of the few assassination attempts that we have on film, right? And of course, there's the infamous scene where the Secret Service guy busts out his briefcase where the handle was actually an Uzi. He's walking around with an Uzi. You know, I think that's proof positive, right? That the Secret Service was like right there ready to respond. But anyway, when they studied the psychology of that guy, you want to know what he was trying to do? He was trying to impress Jodie Foster.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, how that is something you cannot see coming. I don't care who you are. Mm-hmm. You know, is somebody willing to go to the lengths of trying to harm the president because he's trying to impress Jodie Foster? So I don't know what the motivations of this guy are, whether they're political or whether he's just insane. But the other thing that I've really been surprised at is this isn't the first candidate that's had to deal with this. And it isn't the first time where it sounded like credible enough where a rational person is thinking, whoa, holy smoke. I'm amazed at how quickly these guys get off. I mean, I have a friend that works in the service, right? Do you remember? They let the guy that charged the stage to try and attack Donald Trump when he was running for president. Do you remember the one time where the Secret Service had to cover Donald Trump and there was that guy that charged the stage? So, I mean, they just let him go. They interviewed him, figured like, okay, well, you had your 15 minutes. I'm surprised that's not jail time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'm a person that doesn't like a draconian police state.
In that specific example, it's just, I would do the same thing if I was the president and someone tried to attack me again.
Well, it's one thing to say the president's pardoning you and not you, because the president's like, but I'm surprised when you look at the stress level it creates in the families, when you look at the amount of trauma, psychological trauma that it causes in these people's lives. It's greater than other crimes that carry bigger
at the same time,
sentences.
Though, for someone like the president, for a leader, that is for leaders across the board. When you're leading on a football team, when you're leading on your airsoft team, when you show mercy to people you control the life of is just then when you control their life. But that's the point when you say, look,
no, I wasn't calling for capital punishment.
No,
I'm just
my
saying.
My point being is a lot of the times is because this is by the time you get to where you're going to sentence these people, here's the facts. Someone said or attempted something that threatened people. But the bottom line is, you guys, it's like ultimately nothing happened.
Yeah, but we're catching kids with dime bags and making them spend the night in jail. But you straight up attempt.
Here we go. Ready? I got an idea.
It's not nonsense.
I got a great idea for you.
What?
Maybe they shouldn't put them in jail either. Call me crazy, but maybe when you can, maybe that is wrong
that's
as well.
fair. Fine. If you want, I'm just calling for consistency here. All I'm saying is that it surprises me how quickly and easily these people get off the hook with what I would consider a legitimate and stress-causing threat. That's all I'm saying. And I'm a person that thinks we over-sentence in general in the wrong things. And in these kind of aspects, I'm like, man, I just can't believe they just let them go, saying, oh, well, I don't know.
It's a nonviolent crime when committed by a nonviolent offender with no criminal past. When it gets to a judge's desk and they sit here and say, well, what ultimately happened? Nothing. Dude, I mean, that's the sentencing laws. I encourage everyone watching this podcast, take anything from this podcast, look up sentencing laws in this country. A little anecdote. I used to watch a show a lot called Locked Up Abroad. Not Locked Up Abroad. I did watch that one. It's called I Almost Got Away With It. Anyway, so people are on the run from police, but they would reference why they were in jail, how long they were in jail or prison, in a lot of instances, and how long their sentence was and why. One thing I thought was fascinating, a young man in Florida, he's like 18 years old, got into a fight with a cop, allegedly reached for the officer's weapon. He was sentenced to life in prison in Florida. There was another guy, I believe this was in the Bahamas, not America, but I believe the Bahamas is... Either way, he was in the Bahamas. He lured somebody onto a boat, killed them with a weapon, and then stole the boat, and he served 20 years and actually served 15. Point being is, the crimes you commit and what you're sentenced for vary so radically by so many factors, they're not always fair.
Okay, look, I guess
my point being,
look
into sentencing laws if you want to know more about this stuff.
I get it. I'm very familiar.
Insane. They don't make any sense.
I'm familiar with sentencing law. Are you kidding me? I live in California, where you can like stab a guy to death and on good behavior be out in 6 months.
Perhaps I was speaking with someone else.
So, okay. Well, look, at the end of the day, I can't remember who said this quote. I was watching an interview. I wish I would remember his name, but he said a very interesting quote that I've always remembered. He said, if you look at a civilization, at the end of the day, the two statistics that matter the most are fertility rate and birth rate, right? And that you have to be trying to encourage fertility rate and birth rate. And I also think, okay, piggybacking onto that, so you got to be pro-family if you want your society to thrive. Right behind that, I think you have to be pro-positive leadership. And the way our media is, the way our cultural environment is, we are completely disincentivizing good and honest men from running for office. Because we go through their social media and we try and ruin their lives for stupid stuff. Even Cenk, okay, a guy who I disagree with on 99% of the time, getting lampooned for funny comments, that he made about somebody must be genetically flawed if they're not attracted to me. Okay, I mean, that's not sexism, that's humor. We're it may be just water off a duck's back to Cenk because he's already a public figure, but throughout the political sphere, one of the hardest things to do is to recruit good leadership, because now everybody thinks, dude, I don't want the media coming after me. I don't want people to be scrutinizing everything. So if you want to perpetuate the American civilization as the good thing it is, we need to encourage birth rate, we need to encourage fertility, and we need to encourage good men and women to serve in public office. And things that discourage good men and women to serve in public office, I think need to be heavily discouraged as well. And one of those things is death threats if you decide to run for political office.
Well, but here's the other thing too. I actually wanted to highlight this. It goes beyond that, man. This was just an incident that happened a while ago. I believe, I don't want to hope nothing's going on behind the scenes here. I'm blowing up, but this is on Twitter. It's public. Friend of ours, fellow Yang YouTuber, Paget, actually had an instance months ago now, but in August, of someone leaving what amounts essentially to death threats on her YouTube comments.
Paget mentioned that. Yeah.
So, I mean, this stuff is what goes on online. It's been going on in the, like I said, it's happened to other Yang YouTubers. You want to get to a very specific group of people. It happens there. Extrapolate it to candidates, extrapolate to anyone who has any level of public notoriety at all. And that's true. this stuff does happen. Again, because the same way, Padgett took it very seriously and immediately contacted the authorities. Best way of doing it, because here's the thing too. There, you always have to ask the question of stuff like this, where it's like, it's kind of getting back to what we're talking about with sentencing, what makes it so scary. Yeah, maybe someone sends two or three threatening messages with no intent of doing anything, and they get caught and they say, "Look, I was just trying to make them, I was just trying to screw with them. I'm not a violent offender, whatever." But then what happens if maybe over the course of continuing that behavior over 8 or 9 months, it morphs into something more tangible, right? So I always think it's interesting, the notion that when they catch them early, they can say, well, nothing happened and I wasn't going to do anything. But what if you do harass and threaten someone for 7 or 8 months? At some point, that kind of self-talk and mindset might elevate itself to something more, like you said,
and
real
this
life.
just,
and I think that doesn't get, I think that's why, just came back to what you said, it is so important to reach out and contact right away. Because like you were saying before, a lot of times it's, like I said, I mean, I played video games on Xbox 360 and Xbox Live. I've probably received mountains of what you can consider death threats. That being said, at the time I was a kid. I had no public stance, and I would say the setting and who I was receiving them from kind of told me I wasn't really to be.
That's just from spurned ex-lovers.
No, not from spurned ex-lovers, from other individuals. But my point being is this stuff's very popular, very common online. So I'm glad to see Yang addressed it. That's about it.
That guy named Jeffrey that invited you to that party was angry that you didn't show up.
No, it was Sniper Wolf X, because I grenaded him on B point. Now, that's why these people are yelling at me. No, but I'm just saying that's, again, when Sniper Wolf X sends you a death threat on your Xbox Live account because you're using a overpowered weapon, you don't take it serious. When you're running for president, and as they mentioned in here, typically when people take it to the next level and when you know it's getting serious is when they say, I'm going to do this, and then they provide information that they actually are within, like they have the means, you know what I mean? And I think they mentioned in here, they were getting some specific information in the emails that led them to go, you know what? Maybe this guy's crazy and won't do anything, but he is literally following our events and showing up to them. So we should take it seriously. I think that's what happened here. So that's that.
So anyway, let us know what you guys think about Whipped Cream Gate, I guess is what it's getting called now. Comment below. If you can, make sure that you follow us on Twitter at PSP Radio 1. We do a lot of announcements there, and you can DM us stories and links to different photos and cool stuff that you've done there. We're also on Facebook and on Instagram as Problem Solver Politics. And make sure that you hang out with us. Generally, we live stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays, both on Twitch and on YouTube. If you can, subscribe to our second channel, which is where we do a lot of our streaming and put up a lot of clips from our streams, which is Problem Solver Politics Stream and Clips. This is Problem Solver Politics, and we will see you in the next video.